The idea of cutting calories has been a mainstay of weight loss ideology for a half century or more. As the story goes, the sugar industry paid for research that, well, sugar-coated sugar and made fat the enemy of health. And with sugar being gram for gram lower calorie than fat, the drive to count calories helped entrench fat bad, sugar not so bad dogma. Some 50 years on, reasonable doubt certainly abounds as to the integrity of this logic. And the ultimate outcome for the biggest loser contestants enshrines that doubt. By and large, they regained all of the weight they had lost. The question is why? It's simply held that calories going out need to be greater than calories going in for weight loss to happen. Today, Dr. Jason Fung reveals what's missing from this equation. That is the key hormone factor that could have kept the biggest losers slim if they'd known about it. Welcome to Vital Signs, where we learn how to get healthier from all angles, from the biochemical and nutritional to the things we do that nourish our minds and our souls. I'm Brendan Fallon. Dr. Fung is a physician and a nephrologist or kidney health specialist and the best-selling author of The Obesity Code. I know from your writing that you identify insulin as this key hormone that tells the body to store fat, and that a higher carb diet will lead to more insulin and more storage of fat. So does that mean if you're eating less carbs, you're going to have less insulin, less fat storage, and you can lose weight without having to do something like intermittent fasting?
Yeah, so remember, absolutely. So you don't need to fast long periods of time to lose weight. I mean, in the 70s, they were fasting sort of from dinner time, maybe 6 or 7 at night, to breakfast time, maybe 7 or 8. So you're talking 12, 13 hours every single day. So not like long fast, not like 24 hours, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. So you can certainly lose weight. The point about insulin is that insulin is a natural hormone. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with insulin. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing, which is telling you to store body fat. Certain foods are going to stimulate more insulin than others. And what people have done is they've brainwashed us into thinking that the only thing that's important is the calories, but that's not true. If you look at food actually contains the chemical energy that's contained, which is the calories, but it also contains instructions for your body as to what you're supposed to be doing with those calories. So every time you eat, and every food is going to be different, your body is going to release different hormones. So when you eat cookies, you're going to release a lot of insulin because there's a lot of sugar, there's a lot of refined carbohydrates. If you were to eat broccoli, then you're going to release a lot less insulin. So if you have 100 calories of cookies, you have very high insulin response. You eat 100 calories of broccoli, very low insulin response. Well, because our body runs on hormones, that's the instructions. It's like the instruction manual, right? So our body says high insulin. What do I do with those 100 calories? Well, high insulin equals I store all of these 100 calories into body fat right away. So you have 100 calories that you've eaten of cookies goes into body fat. Well, there's nothing left for the rest of your body. So then you're going to want to go eat some more food because your body's like, I don't have anything. Your heart, your liver, your kidneys are like, I don't have anything. You stuck all those calories into storage. I don't have any. If you eat broccoli, well, insulin is low. So those instructions to your body says, okay, put a little bit into storage. But the rest of it is good for you, your heart, your kidney, your brain. They all have energy to go. So therefore your body says, well, I don't need to eat. I have plenty of energy. So even though they're the same calories, the instructions are different. And I don't understand why. So we pretend that that hormonal response is utterly irrelevant because it's not. I mean, that's the way the human body works. Why pretend that it doesn't work the way it does, right? So remember, for every calorie that you eat, your body has a choice: store it or burn it. And which one it does is very important if you're worried about how much gets stored, right? It's just like if you have money. Say you have $100. Well, you can save it or you can spend it, right? And if you want to, or if you're worried about how much your savings are, well, obviously it's important the instructions you gave for that $100. Did you save it or did you spend it? That's really important. Why would you pretend that it's not? right? But people would in the calorie world would say, well, it's all about the $100. Everything else doesn't matter. Same with the calories. They say it's all about the 100 calories. Everything else doesn't matter. Why wouldn't it matter? Like, it doesn't make any sense at all.
Hello, I hope you're enjoying this Vital Signs episode. I'm your host, Brendan Fallon. What challenges have you had with weight loss? Has anything worked for you? We'd love to hear about it. If you're watching on TV, you can find Vital Signs at epochtv.com to leave a comment. And if you're finding this video helpful, please be sure to share it with family and friends by clicking the share arrow below. I know that you've spoken about this concept of body set weight, Dr. Fung, this idea that people will naturally gravitate, given enough time, to this set weight, regardless of how much or little they eat. And this must be incredibly frustrating for people trying to lose weight. How can people genuinely change their body set weight?
Yeah, so this is the concept of the body set weight, which is this sort of it's sort of like a thermostat, right? So a thermostat in a room, for example, you set room temperature, and if it gets too hot, it'll turn on the air conditioning, and it's automatic. And if it gets too cold, it's going to turn on the heat, all the way, always adjusting back the room back to that sort of ideal temperature. And the body has a very similar homeostatic mechanism where you have a certain weight. And if you go above the weight, your body is actually going to try to burn more calories. And they've done this study where they take people, they force feed them, and so that they gain weight and they gain 10% body weight. And what happens is when you measure their metabolic rate, it actually goes up. So your body actually tries to burn it off. So they actually burn about 400 or 500 calories more than before in an effort to get the weight back down. And of course, it goes the other way too. So if you lose weight, then your body burns fewer calories to try and get that weight back up. And so the question is not, how do I adjust my calories to bring my weight up? So if you think about this homeostatic mechanism, so say you have a room temperature, it's at a room temperature. Now you bring in a little portable heater and you heat up the room, saying, I'm too cold, I want to heat up the room. So you heat up the room. The problem, of course, is that the thermostat is going to sense that the room temperature has gotten higher, it's gotten hotter, so it's going to turn on the air conditioning. So you've got the heat going and the air conditioning going at the same time. Same thing in your body. So your body, if it has a weight that's set and you don't like that weight, now you want to drop your weight, right? So you eat fewer calories. The problem is the body is going to sense, oh, my weight has gone down. So I'm going to make you more hungry, or if that doesn't work, I'm going to start slowing down my metabolism so that I get my body weight back up. So the question of how to get the room higher, hotter or colder is not about how much heat I can bring in or how much air conditioning I can bring in. The question is, how do I set that thermostat? Same thing in the body. So if you have a body set weight, which is set too high for you, the question is not about how many calories do I need to cut or how many whatever. Because if you simply cut your calories, your body will then lower your metabolic rate to bring the weight back up. The question is, how do you adjust that body set weight? And what sets it? Well, same as everything else. There's obviously a component of genetics, but it all comes down to the hormones. So if you think about genetics can explain a lot of the interpersonal differences. So certain people are more prone to weight gain than others. That happens, right? Some people are sort of born very chubby and some people are born very skinny. Everybody knows somebody who's super, super skinny, and no matter what they do, they can't gain weight, right? Most of us worry about the other side. But there's a huge genetic component to it. It's about 70% actually. But what it doesn't explain is how an entire population, such as really the population of the world, it used to be an American problem, but now it's a worldwide problem, how the entire world got fatter. Because our genetics have not changed in the last 50 years on a worldwide scale. So therefore, something is gradually moving our body set weight up. And what sets the body weight? Same thing that happens with everything else. It's really up to the hormones. So if you give a lot of insulin, if you increase the amount of insulin that people are generating, you're going to move that body set weight up. If you increase the amount of GLP it's producing, for example, by giving Ozempic or Mounjaro, well, you're going to gradually move that body set weight down. So it's really the interplay of all these hormones that feed into weight loss. There's actually more to it. There's things like dopamine, which, for example, is a neurotransmitter, most notably used for reward systems. So it creates, pleasure, that kind of thing. So what happens, of course, is that certain foods, especially highly processed foods, we see stimulate serotonin and dopamine, part of our reward system in the brain. So if you start giving people foods that are going to be addictive, that are going to be rewarding, like sugar and so on, well, you're going to get people are going to eat, or they're going to be addicted, and that's going to move that thing. So not only all these hormones, but a lot of neurotransmitters and stuff. So, that body set weight is ties in very closely to the idea that you really have to look at the hormones that are setting that body weight, and not just the calories involved. Calories is a very simplistic sort of level. It's sort of like if you have the thermostat in your room and you say, well, the temperature in the room is heat in minus heat out. So I'm going to bring in my portable heater. I'm going to heat up this room. And then it doesn't work. And you go, no, it has to be heat in minus heat out. That's thermodynamics. It's like, no, you completely ignored the thermostat. It is heat in, heat out, but you're bringing in heat. The thermostat's bringing in the air conditioning. Same thing in the body. You say it's calories in, calories out. I cut my calories. Well, your body cut the calories you spend. So it's like, why would you expect the body fat percentage to change? Well, it won't, because you didn't pay attention to that thermostat, which is all about the hormones. How are you going to move it less towards insulin? Because insulin moves it up. So you want to move it down. You want less insulin. But intermittent fasting is a great way to do it. And that intermittent fasting has disappeared since the 1970s, right? People went the other way. They said you should eat 10 times a day, right? You should eat all the time. You should eat while you're walking. You should eat while you're driving. You should eat while you're in the theaters. You should eat while you're in front of your computer. You should eat while you're working. All of this stuff, right? You should snack all the time. Well,
And I understand the results that finally came off the Biggest Loser competitors was quite a compelling, I guess, argument against the whole calorie intake, calorie outtake theory.
oh, absolutely. Because this was, and really what happened in The Biggest Loser. So this was an American reality show where people basically cut their calories to very low levels, and they started losing weight, which is great, until they started to, you could see, because they took these people and measured their metabolic rate, which we don't normally do for most people, but they did for this study. And what they found was that as they're cutting their calories, just as you would predict, if you don't focus on eating the right foods, then your body has to burn fewer calories, because you're not able to pull those calories out. So their metabolic rate kept dropping and dropping and dropping. By the end of 6 months, I think they're burning 500 calories per day less than they were before. And those didn't change even after 6 years. Some of them were burning 700 calories less every single day. So this is the problem, right? So if you cut 500 calories out, right, you go 2,000 calories, you go down to 1,500, but your body has cut 700 off the expenditure, right? So now your body's burning 1,300. So even though you're eating 1,500 calories, your body's now burning 1,300 calories. You are regaining all of that weight. And in fact, when they did those 6 year follow up studies of that particular group of Biggest Loser patients, I think the average weight regain was 90 pounds. 90 pounds. Like, that's insane. All because, people didn't focus. They focused only on the calories, which is, as I said, only a single part of it, right? Like, how can I just don't understand how people cannot understand. Like, it's like saying, it's like the savings, right? If you want to know how much savings you have, you need to know not only how much money you're making, but where that money is going. Okay. So if you want to know where those calorie savings are going and coming, you need to know the number of calories, but are you burning it or saving it? That's really important, right? If you don't focus on that, then your body is going to respond. And this is the way the average contestant responded. So then people regain all that weight. They regained 90 pounds on average. And then people said, oh, they went off their diet. No, they didn't. They were still eating 1,500 calories, but their body went down to 1,300 calories. So that's almost like the worst of both worlds, right? So you're cold, you're tired, you're hungry, and you're regaining weight, and everybody's saying, oh, you're just cheating on your diet when they're not, right? And completely unfair because people look at them and think, oh, they didn't do this, they didn't know. The problem was that what is taught to experts, what's taught to doctors, what's taught to dietitians, you read any standard textbook of obesity, they'll tell you it's all about the number of calories. I'm like, I don't understand how that can be so, people can be so like blinded to the fact that the body doesn't actually respond to calories. The body only responds to hormones, right? So hormones is what tells your body what to do. If you want to grow, you need a hormone to tell you to grow. If you want to go into menopause, you need hormones to tell you to go into menopause. If you want to go through puberty, you need hormones to tell you to go through puberty. That's just the way our body works. It has to have those instructions. It doesn't take a piece of meat and then all of a sudden grow. It has to be translated through the hormones to tell our body what to do. So that translation is really important.
How is shifting the body between burning glucose and burning fat, like storing food in the fridge or in the basement? Dr. Fung explains in just a moment. First, though, if there's one thing that we learned from the pandemic, it's to expect the unexpected and not to solely rely on public health service in a crisis. So how do we optimize health for the next pandemic? Here's a quick look.
If I start to feel a little itchiness in the back of my throat, if I start to feel some chills, if that happens, the first place I go is to a sauna. There are multiple viruses that infect the human race. Almost every single one of them that actually gets a foothold is able to neutralize an immune factor of the human body.
With COVID still seeing surges, why is it important to be looking to natural paths to improving immunity?
We have very good evidence that people who go outside into green spaces have many health benefits. If you're around a lot of trees, there are chemicals and it enters into our body and goes. It actually activates the innate immune system. And these natural remedies, these are just everyday things, very inexpensive lifestyle choices that we can employ to improve our health.
Afterward, find the link to that video at the top of the comments and also in this video's description below. And to get notice of new Vital Signs videos, follow me at Vital Signs Brendan on Instagram and Facebook and at C Vital Signs on X. So hormones are the thermostat and need to be a key consideration if people seriously want to lose weight. One thing I know that is really central to this weight loss process is this switch from burning glucose to burning fat. And I understand this burning fat phase is known as ketosis. Could you say a little bit about that, Dr. Fung, and how insulin factors into making this switch from burning glucose to burning fat?
Yeah. So the whole idea is that ketosis is a way that our body has of burning fat. So remember, there's two fuel sources. Your body can burn glucose and it can burn fat. Glucose is a form of energy that's easily accessible. So it's stored in the liver, but you can easily get it out of the liver. But there's a limited amount. So you can last if your glucose stores are full, you can last about 24 hours. So the advantage is that it's easy to get to. The disadvantage is that there's only 24 hours. The body fat is a complementary form of calorie storage, which is that it's harder to get to because it's harder to pull fat out, but you can carry a lot more of it. So you can go for days. So 50 pounds of body fat, 175,000 calories is enough for 100 days of not eating. So you can carry a huge amount of calories in your body fat, but it's harder to get to. So those two things are important. Ketosis is where you kind of go through all your glucose stores and now you're burning fat. When you burn fat, the brain can't actually use fat directly. So the liver actually makes from the fat molecules, it makes ketone bodies, which is why you have ketosis, and the ketones can actually go into the brain as a source of fuel. So the reason people like to do ketogenic diets or go into ketosis is that they want to be sure that they're burning fat. So that's the idea, is that you can actually make sure you're burning fat by measuring ketones. Insulin is that major switch that switches you from storing energy to burning energy. And the important thing about insulin is that sometimes, certain foods are going to stimulate a lot of insulin. The only implication of that is that certain foods are more fattening than other foods, because certain foods, say 100 calories of cookies, are going to be more prone to be shoving that into storage as opposed to leaving it for you to burn. The other thing that's important is that insulin inhibits lipolysis, which is that insulin blocks fat burning. So if you can't, because insulin tells your body to store it, you're not going to pull it out. So therefore, it's blocking you from pulling those calories out of body fat. So people talk about this thing where, oh, if you eat 500 fewer calories, you're going to lose a pound a week. It's not actually true, because that's not the way the human body works. Suppose that on a regular state where I'm eating 2,000 calories, I'm burning 2,000 calories. Okay, so body fat is going to stay zero. People then say, well, you just have to eat 500 less because you're only taking 1,500. You're trying to burn 2,000. You want to pull 500 out of body fat. But if your insulin levels are high because you're eating tons of cookies, because you're eating less, but you're eating all this junk food, you're eating cookies, you're eating all the time, because remember, every time you eat, insulin's going to go up because that's a signal. Well, if you leave your insulin signals high, then you can't get that 500 calories out of your body fat. So now you're eating 1,500, you're trying to burn 2,000, you're trying to pull 500 calories out of your body fat stores, but because your insulin is high, you can't do that. Well, what can you do? Well, what happens? Well, if you're only eating 1,500, now you're only burning 1,500. So what happens? Well, you're not losing body fat. And because you're burning fewer calories, you're cold, you're tired, you're hungry, and you're not losing weight. And that's the problem when you only focus on the calories, because everybody says, well, it's thermodynamics. These people are like, they don't understand that the human body is not like a free-for-all, which is what that calories can flow wherever they want. It's regulated. So if you can't take the calories out of storage, the only response to eating less is burning less, but you're not losing body fat. Your metabolism drops. And that's precisely what has happened in almost every study that they've done, where they simply tell people to cut your calories, cut your calories. Almost every single study has been a failure that we've ever done, because they didn't focus on the right foods. You have to eat the right foods. And it's not that it has to be low fat or it has to be low carb. There's lots of different ways that you can get it, but you have to focus on what's happening in the body. And if you want to focus on what's happening in the body, you need to know what the hormones are telling the body to do, because that's just the way the human body works.
I know that you've spoken about using glucose for energy versus using fat for energy as being like storing food in the fridge versus storing food in the basement. Could you explain that model for us?
Yeah, so if you think about the way the body stores energy, it stores it in two forms, right? Which is sugar, which is glucose, which is glycogen in the liver. So you take the glucose, you string it all together in a long molecule called glycogen, you store it in the liver. And that's easy to come out. So if you think about the way we store food, you can store it in the refrigerator. So you can store food in the fridge and it's easy to get out. You can put it in, you can take it out really easy. Same thing with glucose. You can put it in, take it out really easy. However, you can only store a certain amount of it. So if you have more than what your fridge can hold, then you can get one of those freezers in your basement. And the advantage of the freezer in the basement is that you have more space. So you can put one freezer, you can put two freezers down in the basement, but it's harder to get at, right? It's downstairs, everything's frozen. So that's a complementary model of storage, right? Your fridge is easy to get to, but can only hold a certain amount. The freezer is harder to get to, but a much, you can put lots in it. Same thing in the body. So you have the glycogen, the sugar storage, which is easy to get to, but can only hold a certain amount. And you have the body fat, which is unlimited. You can hold, hundreds of thousands of calories of body fat, but it's harder to get to. So the point is that if you want to burn body fat, then you need to start to lower the insulin so you can start removing that, because the glucose is what's the easiest to get in and out of. By reducing the amount of glucose, and remember, carbohydrates are glucose, you're removing it, then you're sort of emptying out that fridge so you can start getting stuff at the freezer. If you never get rid of all the glucose, if you're just eating, white bread and jam all day long, well, then you're going to have so much glucose, your fridge is going to be full, which is the glucose. So why would you eat the stuff in your freezer? And the answer is you won't, right? Because you're just using this stuff in the fridge. Same thing in the glucose compartment. Glucose, sugar, fat. You want to, cut down the carbohydrates so that there's not as much glucose, so that you can force your body to start using body fat. If you don't use the body fat, of course, then it's going to build up. If you never use it, you're going to not be able to lose the body fat. So, again, it's a nuance of the way the body works. People talk about calories, 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 as if everything is equal in the body, but it's not. There's actually important differences between if you're eating a lot of glucose versus other things.
Dr. Fung, thank you so much for joining us on Vital Signs again and illuminating these much neglected aspects of how too much insulin leads to weight gain, and how something like intermittent fasting can help reduce that effect. I look forward to going into this further with you to look at what a solid intermittent fasting plan should look like.
Thank you so much.
We learned how rather than calorie counting, it's adjusting the thermostat, aka the hormones, especially insulin, that can bring more lasting weight loss results. Dr. Fung will be back soon to outline what a more solid intermittent fasting plan looks like, and to bust some of the myths around intermittent fasting. Find that video at the top of the comments and in the description below once published. How can we naturally fend off the next big virus, or even just the flu? My look at natural key immune boosters is also at the top of the comments and in the description below. And remember, you can subscribe to stay abreast of our Vital Signs Health Insights by clicking that big red button below. It's been great to be with you. I'm Brendan Fallon, and this is Vital Signs.